have no blood on my hands. 19 people, to the record that I have from the security agencies, are dead. Very unfortunate. As a democracy, that should not be part of our conversation. 2.4 billion of property has been destroyed. The office of the Chief Justice has been burnt. City Hall has been burnt. Parliament has been burnt. That is the situation.
When a government uses violence against its own citizens, it often raises concerns about human rights and accountability. It is essential for societies to address these issues and work towards peaceful solutions. It is absolutely heartbreaking when a government resorts to violence against its own citizens. Such events can have far-reaching consequences, affecting trust in institutions, social cohesion, and individual lives. The global community has watched with horror to what was happening in Kenya, especially with regards the police boldly shooting fellow Kenyans. It was shocking to see fellow Kenyans treated by the police as if the citizens had invaded Kenya. President Ruto and his ruthless police definitely crossed all the barriers. They acted as if Kenya was a military state. As a global community, we must continue advocating for peace, justice, and human rights. The Kenyans who protested demonstrated remarkable courage. Their actions highlighted the power of collective voices in advocating for their rights and holding the state accountable. These demonstrations reflected citizens' determination to voice their concerns and advocate for change in Kenya. It is about time for a revival in Africa, courtesy of the gallant Kenyans. This is a wake-up call for some leaders in Africa. Africa has witnessed too much impunity from the ruling class or straight-up dictators who rule. They totally forget that they were elected to that office, and the people who elected them can also bring them down. This is exactly what happened in Kenya. It is also about time that the African leaders took into account the needs of their citizens, and not from the colonizers. In the case of Kenya, President Ruto was influenced by external forces, prioritizing their interests over those of its citizens. However, a lot of Africans take pride in witnessing the results of powerful and unshakable demonstration that spread so fast in Kenya. This was a resolute demand of the citizens to hold politicians accountable. I hope President Ruto has taken this fully on board. As of my last update, there are no specific ongoing demonstrations in Kenya mentioned in the recent news. Please may I remind you to subscribe and share the video. Thank you very much.
Holistic appraisal of the performance.
Kenyans have been waiting to see how President William Ruto would react to growing discontent with his government.
I have today decided to dismiss with immediate effect all the cabinet secretaries and attorney general of the Republic of Kenya, of the Cabinet of Kenya.
Demonstrations began last month against a controversial finance bill that would have raised taxes. They started peacefully but turned violent. Police killed dozens of people after protesters stormed the Parliament building. President Ruto withdrew the bill. That didn't stop growing calls for him to step down. The streets have mostly been calm for the last week, but many of those who protested say a new cabinet is a small start, and Ruto has a long way to go to make real change.
When we come to appointing the new cabinet secretaries, because we need some in the near future, the president must ensure that there is vigorous vetting for these individuals. These should not be politicians, these should not be his friends, these should be technocrats, people from professions.
All those killer cops that killed people, we want them all to go home. We want the president to address the issues of all those people who are killed, the families.
I, William Samoei
Ruto won elections 2 years ago by a narrow margin. Turnout was low. He promised to help ordinary people. Since then, the cost of living's gone up, and there's been growing criticism of his government. Several of his appointees who were implicated in past corruption scandals and crimes had their charges dropped after he took office. Critics say his government is the most corrupt and incompetent that Kenya's ever had. Before the protests, some of his ministers, who've now been fired, scathingly dismissed the mostly young social media critics as a privileged minority. It's only when tens of thousands came out in the streets of around 50 towns and cities that it became clear that dissatisfaction was widespread. Politicians and officials have since been ejected from public meetings. More excesses and corruption scandals have been exposed. Some MPs' offices have been burned. Several remain in hiding. The protests and the anger expressed towards politicians and officials online and on the street have revealed a crisis of legitimacy to President Ruto's government. Kenyans are now waiting to see how far the appointment of a new cabinet will go to address it.
So we're here to bury Ibrahim, who was murdered by the police during the peaceful protest that actually happened. He was an innocent young man with a bright future, and he was protesting for his rights, and then he was murdered. So we're here to say goodbye to him and demand for justice. My name is Boniface Mwangi. I'm an activist online. People call me the People's Watchman because when you have an issue, come to me, I highlight it for you, and then we try to get to justice. Yeah, it looks like a war zone. The president is a coward. That's he needs a lot of armed people around his residence. So we're gonna go around and say hello to all the police roadblocks. Find out how they're doing. So the colors are very symbolic. It's green for the country, white for peace, red for the blood that was shed for our freedom, and black for the people. We're black and beautiful all the time. Today the city looks like the president is under siege. A man under siege from his own citizens. He should ask himself what he's doing wrong. I was almost abducted by the police outside a mortuary, so I had to run away. Sasa sawa, unashikia nini? Sio twende nyumbani bwana. Acha twende nyumbani. They just had us in any young people in the streets. Can't walk around, can't say anything. Our government is overtaxing us so that we can support and maintain the expensive lifestyle and tastes of the people in power. So the anger in the streets is about Kenyans saying you cannot overtax us to fund your lifestyle. The police are killing us outside parliament. They shot someone right now. 2 people have been shot right now outside parliament. They're shooting us. Why are you shooting us? Why are you killing us? Poleni kwa msiba.
Washasi wote.
Poleni sana. We're trying to get the body released because the Muslims and the police were denying. They're saying that they're still investigating, but the longer Muslim stays, it's not right for their religion. So we are trying to get the body released, then it can be buried today. It is tough. He was a young kid, 19 years old. Just finished high school.